This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, coming at you with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. Let's start off with his critique of something Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the most successful wrestler of all time. A story that he told on the Joe Rogan Experience this week that Joe Rogan has made into a clip. And I actually believe Dave Meltzer's version on this over The Rock. I think The Rock was just trying to impress the MMA fans, but he was on the Joe Rogan Experience November 15th and said that in 1997, he came close to signing with Pride Fighting Championship because his wrestling career wasn't doing well, and he was claiming he was making 150 grand for wrestling 235 dates a year, and knew people in Pride that were making 250 grand a match. And keep in mind, at this time, Don Fry was wrestling for New Japan. Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn were working for WWE because the money in fighting was so bad. And the first Pride show ever was actually October 11, 1997. And it was billed as a one-off. And by October of 97, Dwayne Johnson's career, according to Meltzer, had turned around, and he was already a heel and one of the top stars of the company. So why in 97 he would want to go to sign with Pride, which wasn't even a full-time company by then, doesn't make much sense. Meltzer writes that in 2000, Ken Shamrock signed with Pride for $250,000 a fight. But by that time, The Rock was making millions in WWE as one of its two top stars, along with Steve Austin. In other WWE news, Randy Orton is expected to return this month. Survivor Series from Chicago has 6,315 tickets out, 903 tickets left to sell. Vince McMahon sold 8,400,000 shares of his stock for $641,844,000. He still has over 20,000 shares of WWE stock, and he'd have to be under. He still has over 20 million shares of WWE stock and would have to be under 7 million to lose his majority stockholder status. So don't read too much into that. He's been selling off stock for a long time. John Cena had surgery on one of his arms. Said he needs surgery on another one of his arms. The first surgery was elbow related. Now, these could have been long-time nagging injuries, and in my opinion, were most likely long-time nagging injuries. WWE has made the decision not to use a large stage for the WrestleMania week Raw and SmackDown shows in order to sell more tickets. This seems to be a TKO call. Why have a larger stage that costs more to build and takes up room in the arena where you can't sell tickets when you could have a smaller stage and sell more tickets? I mean, for most shows that aren't selling out, there's a reason for the larger stage, because it hides the fact that you can't sell more you can't actually sell out a building. But Meltzer brings up they can sell 8,553 tickets rather than just 13,000 with a smaller stage. The Backlash 2024 pay-per-view is going to be from the Accor Arena in Paris, France. Logan Paul this week says he's done with boxing, is going to focus on wrestling moving forward. Obviously, he's making a ton in wrestling these days. The November 10th SmackDown tapings in Columbus, Ohio, had 6,900 paid fans. The November 13th Raw tapings in Washington had 9,000 paid. Tony Khan is pushing that a signing of a highly respected wrestler is going to happen at Full Gear. People are thinking it's either Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, who Khan brought into the Wembley Stadium show, but not on a wrestling capacity. Will Ospreay or Goldberg. Of course, Goldberg would be by far the biggest. Let's face the facts here. Nobody cares about Will Ospreay other than Smart Marks. He's a small, flippity wrestler that the Smart Marks love, which would fit into the AEW fan base. And I'm not insulting that, because we have more AEW fans that watch this channel than WWE. So if you like the acrobatic wrestlers, you'd be really happy about Will Ospreay signing with AEW. But if you're a fan like me, you wouldn't care. Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné, she's lost so much steam since leaving WWE. I mean, she had the initial bang of joining New Japan, but then she only had a few matches, maybe even one match before getting injured. I think it was 2, though. And she's been pretty much out of the wrestling news for the most part over the past year. I mean, her fans will certainly care if it's her signing, but I don't think many of the casuals are going to care at this point because she's lost so much steam. I mean, I just posted an interview that John Paz did with Kevin Nash on this channel. Remember when Hall and Nash had all that buzz going to WCW? It was just after their WWE contracts expire. Had they waited a year, I mean, would the NWO have had as much steam? No. So the least likely of this would be Goldberg. There's other people speculating it would be Dolph Ziggler, who was mostly used as kind of a name enhancement talent in WWE. But his WWE no-compete doesn't expire till the end of December, according to reports. Full Gear has 10,461 tickets out right now, with a $900,000 gate, which would put it one of their 3 biggest crowds of the year, along with All In and Forbidden Door, which was from Toronto, which was the first AEW pay-per-views in the UK and Canada. Flair has not appeared in AEW since his unannounced initial appearance, which baffles me. Why, like, with Collision and Rampage struggling so much, why would you not even at least put Flair on Collision or Rampage? You only use him in an unadvertised appearance. To me, it's like Flair could still pop a rating with casual fans, but they did that first appearance with Flair and then nothing. Khan announced that All In from Wembley Stadium had 200,000 buys on pay-per-view, which is a good number. He also said that there's going to be promotional tie-ins with AEW and the Iron Claw Von Erichs movie. They are going to be in the Dallas market right before the movie opens for both Collision and Dynamite. And the Von Erichs are living in San Antonio right now. Of course, having Ross and Marshall with Kevin do a match on those shows would get a huge pop and actually boost ticket sales in those markets. They are free agents at the moment. MJF is in the Iron Claw movie as Lance Von Erich. Of course, Lance has done several interviews on the Hannibal TV, and he brought up Fritz's TV spot, which was crazy, where he denounced Lance and said Lance was not a real Von Erich. And that caused the Von Erichs to lose a lot of credibility. And Lance said in this interview with John Paz on the Hannibal TV, why he even did that when Lance hardly even wrestled after that didn't even make sense, because Lance hardly wrestled after that. So all it did was make the Von Erichs seem like liars. So he would have been better off just not talking about Lance again. Adam Copeland did an interview saying he wanted to work for WWE more than WWE wanted him to work. Of course, Edge has not made a difference in AEW's ratings and did not make a difference in WWE's ratings. But I do think he was a good signing for them. They need more recognizable faces in AEW. The November 15th AEW tapings in Ontario, California, where they sold out previously on the first day of sales, only had 3,429 fans in the building, including comps. November 15th. In other wrestling news, DDT in Japan ran an event at Sumo Hall, which can hold, I believe, up to 10,000 people. They brought in Matt Cardona, Chris Jericho, Marufuji, and others, and had about 4,000 in the building. That's got to be a disappointment considering Jericho was on the card. I know the recent Abdullah the Butcher tribute on at Sumo Hall had like over 10,000 fans. Which, by the way, I did post one of my matches with Abdullah on Rick Bassman's channel recently, and it got about 55,000 hits in a couple of weeks. So happy to know those matches are still getting hits. The University of Iowa had a women's dual meet at Hawkeye Arena November 12th and drew 8,207 fans, which was a larger crowd than any pro wrestling crowd had last weekend anywhere in the world except for Arena Mexico, which had 9,000 fans. WrestleNomics said the October ratings for women of wrestling were October 1st, 0.06, October 8th, 0.04, October 15th, 0.06, October 22nd, 0.06, October 29th, 0.05. So those are very good numbers when you consider New Japan and Impact don't even get 0.01s most weeks. But we never hear anything reported about women of wrestling for whatever reason. MMA, in MMA news, UFC 295 from Madison Square Garden had 19,039 fans in attendance for $12,432,563. Second biggest gate in MSG history, behind 17.7 million record for the Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez fight in 2016, which was MSG's UFC debut. Apparently, it could have hit closer to $20 million gate, but after the cancellation of the John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, they had to do refunds and they had to lower ticket prices. But still an excellent gate. They don't know. It hasn't been announced what that show did on pay-per-view, but Google searches were only about 250,000, which is nothing great. But there wasn't any real name fighters on that show. Apparently, the Tyson Fury-Francis Ngannou fight only did 240,000 pay-per-view buys in the UK, about 70,000 in the US, which is a huge pay-per-view disappointment. That's not much of a surprise because if Francis Ngannou was that much of a draw, UFC never would have let him go. And I'll be honest, I have a lot of friends that are fight fans that did not order that pay-per-view. They just watched the highlights. Hello, CM Derp. If I could sucker punch a celebrity, who would it be? That is a tough one. Maybe CM Punk. Just because he seems like such an asshole. Someone says The Rock is licking boots. I don't know what... I've never heard of that term, that phrase before. You'll have to Tell me in the comments what licking boots means. I mean, The Rock is, there's been the writer's strike, so there hasn't been a lot of movies released lately. But The Rock is one of the most successful, he is the most successful wrestler of all time. He broke mainstream more than any wrestler. He is still the only wrestler that could sell out any building in North America right now. If you put The Rock against somebody here in Ottawa, Canada, the building would immediately sell out. There's no other wrestler I think that could do that. If you put The Rock in Dallas as fighting somebody in the big stadium there, it would sell out. He is just the biggest draw of any wrestler, even in his 50s, and he looks amazing. He looks absolutely amazing. Of course, he's rich enough to have the best cooks, nutritionalists, and supplement people out there. I am a big fan of his. I still have not watched the full Joe Rogan Experience with The Rock. Although, as I said, I do agree that he may have considered doing MMA at one point. He may have. But I don't think he would. I don't think anyone making wrestling money would want to have to go and get hit in the head for real intentionally to make money when there's so much less pressure in wrestling. Other than Brock Lesnar, but Brock Lesnar, unlike The Rock, had been doing amateur wrestling since he was a little kid. And he ended up making a huge amount of money in the UFC, so it made sense for Brock. But The Rock was more popular than Brock Lesnar, even though Brock Lesnar is one of the most successful wrestlers of all time. But Brock definitely made the good decision going to UFC. But he was he had a great amateur wrestling background as NCAA champion going into it. Anyways, guys, I'm checking out for now. Check out the shoot interview I posted from John Paz yesterday with Kevin Nash. I really liked it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos,